If you're using a commercial pattern on the back side, it'll actually tell you what types of fabric that are best for that, but it'll usually give you a long list of different types of fabrics, and each one of those fabrics is going to kind of give you a different look. That's why it's kind of important to understand exactly what is the look that you're trying to go for and which of these types of fabrics are likely to give you that particular look. To make it a little bit more difficult, if you go into Joann Fabrics or are trying to buy some fabric online, they're not often always 100% correct or honest in their identification of fabric. This is especially important if you're thinking about reenactment fabrics. So if you're trying to make something that is appropriate for the SCA or for medieval reenactment, or if you're trying to make something for Civil War reenactment or Rev War reenactment, the fabric choice becomes really, really important for a couple of different reasons. One, if you're trying to recreate a historical aesthetic, the easiest way to do that is to actually create it out of fabric that they would have had during that particular time frame. The other really important reason is modern fabrics, which have a lot of great sort of factors in that they're breathable and they stretch and they don't get dirty and they don't wrinkle and they're easy to wash and all those kinds of things, mean that they can also be somewhat hot when you are outside in the summertime trying to wear multiple layers of fabric, which most of your reenactment groups, you're going to be wearing at least 3 layers, if not 4 or 5, depending upon the time period and the outfit that you're actually wearing. So it becomes really important that you have fabric that's a natural fabric that can breathe. That's kind of where I'm going to start today, because I think that that's the easiest thing to sort of learn. A lot of the other things we'll cover in future videos, and ultimately what it really comes down to is going out and looking at a lot of different fabrics and holding them in your hand and feeling them, and then thinking about how does that weight and that drape translate into a particular outfit that you want to make. The easiest fabric to actually identify are those modern fabrics. And what you're looking at right here, hopefully you can kind of see it on the video. Maybe move this over a little bit, this fabric is a satin. So you can see that it's super shiny. It's got relatively nice drape to it, but it's still a little stiff. Oftentimes this fabric is a kind of fabric that might be used for a prom gown or a ball gown. If you're thinking about reenactment uses, I have used this to make Civil War ball gowns in the past, or Rev War ball gowns. They had an equivalent kind of fabric, and this is about the most accessible that's out there. It's usually around $10 a yard, so it's pretty cheap. It comes in a variety of colors. If you're not sure, what it really is meant to do is mimic silk. If you look at this kind of fabric and you're like, is this a polyester? Is this a silk? And that does make a difference in a lot of what you're going to do. The easiest way to identify it is to actually take a little bit of fire. I know, fire, right? So with a little bit of fire, you're going to actually burn, and very, 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 very carefully here, a little edge. And when I'm burning that edge, I want to make sure that I'm getting the threads that go this way and the threads that go that way. I don't know if you can see this, but right here, what I have is a melted ball, and you can really feel it really well, is a melted ball of plastic. Anytime you burn any fabric and as part of your fabric testing, and you feel that sort of hard, it feels just like a hard edge, then you know that there is at least some portion of plastic within the fabric. And that means it's got polyester in it. It has, there's actually a whole range of different types of plastics that we use in modern fabrics these days. And those are the things that make it not wrinkle and that make it easy to wash and stain resistant. But that's kind of like your first clue that when you're thinking about this fabric, you have to think about that and where you're going to use it and how you're going to use it, because it will be hotter. It will not actually allow airflow to come through so that your body can actually breathe and do the things it's supposed to do in order to regulate you during a really hot temperature. Here is another common modern fabric. This is a little thicker. Might be a little hard to see on the video here. It's got a lot of stretch. See how it stretches really far, a lot of different directions. This is used a lot of times to make what are called knit dresses or knit shirts or knit pants. So if you're looking at a pattern and it says you need a knit, you want something like this. Again, this is, if I put that fire to it, I'm going to end up with a little hard ball of wax, and it's going to be pretty obvious, or not wax, but of plastic, it's going to be pretty obvious that it is not 100% natural fibers. This one's actually a little trickier. It's interesting. It's one that I commonly use actually in medieval reenactment for lining hoods. It is a mostly silk fabric. You'll see that it's got a lot of sheen to it, a lot of shimmer, a lot of shine. It actually comes in a variety of options where it might have red fibers one way and black and other fibers another way. Hang on, I have some over here. Yeah, here we go. Here's another version of it. Again, a lot of sheen. Has a little bit of, you can probably see maybe right here. See, there's black fibers that go one way and red fibers that go another. Here's another really pretty version of it. Again, it's what's often called shot, meaning that it's shot through with, it's like a purple shot through with pink or a red shot through with black. But it's generally sold as silk. However, if you burn it, you will find that it's not 100% silk. Progressing into other types of silk, you'll notice, and this is what I was talking about when you talk about what are you making from it, this is kind of stiff. See how it doesn't really, like when it kind of doesn't really fold and drape real nice. Again, you have to think about what is that thing that you're making that means that you want something that's a little stiffer, has a little more body to it. This is also silk, and you'll see it moves really well, it drapes really well, it's got a lot of flow to it. So if I want something really flowy, like a veil or something like that, then this makes a really good fabric for that. There are also some time periods which would have used this as garments. So if you're making anything that's like Persian, 16th century and prior, Turkish, some of those kinds of reenactment clothing also would have used this kind of thing because they were looking for this drape. Also very big, obviously, in say Chinese, Japanese sort of clothing as well. And it comes again in a variety of weights. This one's actually even thinner. You can see through it. It's so thin with the light behind it. Again, a really good veil fabric or something like that. And it even comes in patterns. This particular silk has this beautiful little stripe on it. So when I burn this, I get, again, this hard edge. And maybe you can even see that it kind of pulls apart and it's sort of melty. And when you run your fingers out, it's definitely melty. So again, I use it a lot for like hood linings, which is something that you're going to wear when it's cold out anyway. And so it doesn't really matter. I'll also use it for lining of sleeves if I want something really fancy. There is a variety that is 100% silk. This particular one that's a poly blend is around $10 to $12 a yard. This particular beautiful red and black one, which looks almost identical to it, is actually 100% silk and runs about $15 to $20 a yard. So you can see where if I'm going to make something that I don't need to be real breathable, I'm going to go for the more cost-effective fabric. If I show you this one, burning silk is slightly different. The first thing you'll notice is there's no hard edge on it. In fact, it kind of, when I run my fingers over it, sort of flakes off. The other thing is if you smell it, it smells like animal hair. There's like, if you have a dog or a cat, go sniff their fur if you're not sure what I'm talking about. But when you smell the burningness, it will actually, wool does the same thing where you can actually smell the sort of the burnt animal fibers that are burning there.